Welcome back. You're watching World Talks, and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. The 25% tariffs on foreign-made cars and parts was introduced by the U.S., dealt a severe blow to the worldwide car industry with potential decreases in investment, job losses, and plant closures looming. Earlier this week, Poland's Prime Minister and Polish Finance Minister met with the representatives of the automotive industry to discuss the potential consequences of the increasing costs. How is the Polish economy going to respond? That will be one of the questions for my next guest, Ignacy Morawski, Chief Economist from Puls Biznesu Daily. Thank you for joining me on the program.
Hello.
So 25% tariffs on automobiles, on parts. How significant is this move by the U.S. government for Poland's economy, particularly the automotive sector?
Well, if we look at only automotive tariffs, it will not hit the whole economy severely, because we do not have a large exposure on American market in general, and automotive is only part of the economy. Mm-hmm. Contrary to some other countries in Central Europe, like Slovakia, for example, or Hungary, where automotive is responsible for a significant share of production, Polish economy is more diversified in general. So sectoral tariffs do not hit the whole economy a lot, although obviously they have an impact on automotive sector. But in terms of economy-wide impact, it will be limited. I would say that only automotive tariffs will not have an observable impact on Polish GDP. But when we talk about all tariffs, that's a different story.
But when it comes to the automotive sector, is it going to be heavily hit here in Poland?
Well, I think there are some companies that will be severely hit, right? So we need to look at the problem as a point problem, not economy-wide problem, but as a problem which touches certain companies and certain segments of the sector.
Especially, so Poland, as you mentioned, Poland has quite a diversified portfolio. Yes. When it comes to overall economy.
Right. So in terms of automotive, we do not produce cars, a lot, at least not a lot of cars. But we are a large producer of components and car parts. And some of companies that are present in Poland are large exporters to the United States. So for some of those companies, tariffs will be harmful. Moreover, we sell car parts to Germany, where they are put into cars and sold to the United States.
Apparently, every American car has some part from Poland.
Yeah. So through Germany, probably, this will be the next line of impact. So I would say that for an automotive sector, it will be a recessionary factor. Although still, I do not think that it's something that will make the sector suffer a lot. If we make a list of all the problems of automotive sector now, I think that US tariffs are not the highest. Chinese competition, low domestic demand, technological transformation. Well, if you take only technological transformation, the transferring or I would say transformation from combustion engine to electrical engine will require much less components than previously. So it will put pressure, severe pressure, on car parts producers, right? So there are a lot of, I would say, shocks that are hitting the sector, and US tariffs is only one of them.
We know that Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk and the Finance Minister as well, Andrzej Domański, they met with the representatives of the automotive businesses. How do you think the Polish government is actually going to deal with the fallout for the automotive industry?
Well, we do not have a lot of instruments to help the sector because it is a global sector engaged in global value chains. It does not produce a lot for the local market. So we do not have many ways to react. However, I think there are certain activities that the government can take to help mitigate the effects of tariffs. So first of all, help the sector to expand to other countries, to differentiate exporting markets and try to find new clients. So through export promotion, and in general incentivizing the discovery of new markets. So that's the first thing. Second thing, probably some of the production capacity which is in the automotive sector, which will be freed by tariffs, by low demand, by Chinese competition, might be used for the sake of military production. So at the same time, when the demand in the car sector is declining, or is, I would say, in stagnation, we are increasing demand in the military sector. And to some extent, those two sectors overlap, right? Like certain parts that are produced for cars, for example, for lorries, right, can be produced for military purposes. So that's the second line of reaction.
And we've seen those kind of examples in history when those two industries were kind of crossing over.
Yes, and the third important thing is that one of the largest challenges today, besides technological, for the European and Polish automotive sector is Chinese competition. So many people say that the European car sector will experience so-called Nokia moment, right? Like the Finnish producer of phones in 2009 and 2010 very quickly lost its market share due to increased competition from Asia and from United States. And many people say that the same will happen with the car sector. Now, the car sector the automotive sector is very important for the, I would say, technological capacity of the economy. So probably European Union will try to protect, to some extent, European and Polish automotive sector from severe competition from China. And this will be one of the most important topics in the industry over the next year.
So you're talking about a competition, but let's be the devil's advocate. If Poland, for example, as part of the European Union, produces subparts for cars, do you think it's possible that there could be a potential cooperation with China, especially in face of the U.S. administration tariffs?
Well, there is a scope for cooperation if China changes its general economic strategy and increases purchases from Europe. So the problem,
likely or unlikely?
Well, I would say unlikely in the short term. So Europe faces the same challenge as the United States. It registers a very large trade deficit with China. So China sells a lot of manufacturing goods, and these are ever more advanced, technologically advanced goods to Europe. But at the same time, China does not purchase a lot of goods from Europe. The same was with US. So now US is angry and want to change the terms of the deal. And probably Europe will follow the suit and do the same. Because if China do not purchases European goods, then this trade imbalance will be impossible to maintain. So to me, the best response would be to make deal with China to rebalance trade, right? So we can buy Chinese goods, but they have to buy our goods. The second line of reaction is to protect market from imports, but encourage Chinese investors to build factories in Europe. That would be that's more probable. Although from the perspective of Polish companies, we have to remember that if Chinese producers build factories in Europe, they will probably use Chinese components, not Polish components, because they produce components for their cars. So still, this is a challenge for our sector.
What do you think is going to be the response? We know that there's going to be a general response on Wednesday from the European Union to the tariffs. Is there also going to be a response in the automotive industry?
Well, I think that European Union will use the wait-and-see approach for the moment, because the US policy is very chaotic, unstable, and it's difficult to respond very quickly to such an erratic behavior. So if we look at what other countries do, we can see that China behaves in a very assertive way. So they've engaged in tit-for-tat tariffs. Once US decides on increased tariffs, China decides on tariffs too. On the other hand, we have South Korea, which said that they will not engage in trade war. They will try to negotiate new trade deal with the United States. and they will not increase their tariffs.
But we will see what the response will be from the US as well.
So I think that Europe will be somewhere in between those extremes. It will certainly signal to Washington that it is ready to respond. But it will try to wait and negotiate some better terms of the deal. Especially, look, now when China is hit with 100% tariffs, the prices of European goods in US markets actually declined versus the price of Chinese goods. So this is a very complicated
It's a very complicated environment, a very intricate, dense. In an interview I conducted with former Prime Minister Jan Krzysztof Bielecki, he suggested that this situation could actually paradoxically benefit Europe. Do you think that there is a potential for the tariffs to stimulate growth in the EU when it comes to automotive industry to be more self-reliant?
Well, I think you can look at this problem from various perspectives. One perspective is that when US is engaged in severe trade war with China, Europe may benefit as a supplier to US. Because as I said, European goods in US market with respect to Chinese goods have just declined, right? So European goods today are more competitive on US market versus Chinese goods
until next tariffs
than they were yesterday, until next tariff. So that's the first aspect. The second way to look at the problem is to see the tariff war as an incentive for European economy to grow domestic demand more, right? So Europe has certainly some gaps in domestic demand, right? So Europe is actually behaves to some extent like China. It is a huge exporter. And it imports much less goods than it exports. It means that there is a problem with domestic demand. Europe is a very large and rich market. It has consumers which are willing to buy, and certainly would like to buy more. So I think there is a large scope in Europe to increase domestic demand, to make for that shortfall of demand which will stem from the tariff war. So we will have lower interest rates in Europe, probably larger fiscal expenditures, probably less attention paid to public debt and fiscal sustainability indicators.
And unfortunately...
And it will probably help domestic demand. And so certain sectors like the housing sector may benefit from all the mess, because we will end up with much lower interest rates than before.
And we'll have to put a full stop there because our time has come to an end. Ignacy Morawski, Chief Economist at Puls Biznesu Daily, thank you for joining.
Thank you very much.
So this would be all for now here on World Talks. Please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features.